You never cease to surprise me, Blue Hedgehog. I thought that capsule you were in exploded in space.
You know, what can I say? I die hard. You actually saved me, you know?
It was a Chaos Emerald, wasn't it? But there's no way you could have activated Chaos Control using an emerald that's fake. So there's more to you than just looking like me. What are you, anyway?
What you see is what you get. I run fast and eat ass. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog.
I see. But you know, I can't let you live. Your ass-eating days are coming to an end. When I was a wee lad, one of the few games I owned was Sonic Adventure DX on PC, and from the instant I booted it up, I was hooked. Between then and the release of Unleashed, I had to watch Sonic X every day whilst playing Sonic Flash games on Newgrounds. I also had a friend who owned Sonic 06, so every so often I would visit him just to play that in Halo 3. I know now the controversies of that game, but back then it was Sonic, and I didn't really have enough time or care to find out about the bugs. I've been a fan of Sonic my entire life, and when I played Unleashed for the first time, I thought Sega could do no wrong. After Generations, I had to focus more on school and would play more online games to de-stress with my friends, so Sonic took a back seat. Lucky me, as from the YouTube reviews, it seemed Sonic went down a dark path for a while. I'm not big into online communities. I tend to keep to myself, especially on the internet. Combine that with this news and I just moved away from modern Sonic for a while. I got a Genesis off of eBay and played a lot of the 2D titles, 3 and Knuckles being my favourite. It wasn't until one day I saw the trailer for Sonic Frontiers that I thought to myself, holy shit, Sonic's back! Just to clarify, I never even knew Forces existed, so forgive my naivety. I made sure to avoid anything Sonic related until that thing was on a Steam sale. I'm a big fan, but I'm also a big cheapskate. Then I booted it up and I was so hyped, I couldn't control myself. Slowly that hype died down though, and for the first time in my life, I was bored of a Sonic game.
What?
Look, I know that sounds bad, but I don't think Frontiers is a bad game. I think many of the aspects are either great or have the potential to be great. However, this is the first open world Sonic experience, and there's a lot that needs to be improved upon. So let's talk about that. The game starts off with an ominous cutscene of Eggman trying to hack a big chair made of stone. Somehow succeeding, a bunch of strange machines appear and Eggman is forced through the chair platform 9 3/4 style, presumably being taken to wherever the machines came from. We cut to a more upbeat cutscene of Sonic, Tails, and Amy? Using the tornado to track down the Chaos Emeralds as they've suddenly decided to move to one location out of the blue. The tornado begins to stall and the gang are transported through a strange portal. Starting off, I really like the clash in atmosphere from these cutscenes. Eggman in darkness shows off the true nature of the narrative, while Sonic's brightness shows it's just another adventure from his perspective. It sets the mood for the game, and whether or not you think Sonic should tackle darker concepts, this cutscene does its job. I do believe that brighter tones not only work as a good way to set up a false sense of security, but just works better for Sonic as well. We enter our first stage, getting a sense of the controls, but two things are weird. The stage is very short and it feels familiar. And not just because it's Green Hills again for the umpteenth time. We escape through a portal identical to what sucked in Eggman and are told that we are the key to cyberspace. We're told by the voice in the sky that we need to collect the Chaos Emeralds and destroy some Titans. Sounds awfully familiar. With nothing else to go on, Sonic needs to trust the voice in the sky to save Tails and Amy and decides to move on. We're then sent through a very linear tutorial section, but first, graphics. Graphically, this game is beautiful. This kind of semi-realism hasn't been done since Sonic 06, and they knocked it out of the park here. The fact that Sonic doesn't look out of place in a more realistic world is down to the lighting and overall design. Not having extreme proportions whilst being compared to proportionally correct humans. Unleashed got it right by having humans be just as cartoony as Sonic, but I think this works just as well. Moving forward, we're introduced to how we unlock sections of the map, by completing mini challenges or puzzles. I really like how this works, as they're a lot more active than climbing a tower and reaching a sync point. There's also a lot of variety to the puzzles, so it never feels tedious. I think unlocking small segments like this also prevents the player from being too overwhelmed. Too many open world games use sync points to unlock a huge area of the map to fill the screen with a lot of objectives. If the map was fully unlocked in Frontiers, it would feel the same way, but this prevents that. There's also a compass at the top of your screen telling you where the important objectives are, so the map feels secondary anyway. Continuing on, we go through some tutorials explaining the different controls, also introducing us to the Psy loop. Holding triangle whilst moving creates a path of light behind Sonic. If you create a loop, you can dig things up, activate different objectives, or stun enemies. Can I just take a second to thank Sega for mapping all of their games to the PlayStation controller? Too many times have I felt dirty seeing the Xbox mapping on my screen, even though Steam recognizes my controller. This could have been Sonic 06 levels of bad, and I'd still give it a 5 out of 10 just for that. We find ourselves facing off against a ninja and are introduced to the second best aspect of Frontiers, combat. Combat in Frontiers is very simplistic. You punch stuff with square, parry with both bumpers, and use the Sonic Boom with R2. The homing attack is also used as a way to close the distance whilst also doing damage. Defeating enemies or doing tricks will earn you XP, which can unlock upgrades to the combat like the Sonic Boom or combo attacks that just need 2 button presses to perform. But why is something so simple so amazing? Because of the impact. Every animation is over the top and beautifully animated. Every attack has different animations. The camera always shifts to fully show off the impact, and the impacts themselves look like they hurt while shredding through health bars. The visual and auditory feedback mixed with the insane animations make this combat feel 100 times better than it actually is. And I love it. The combat feels a lot closer to Metal Gear Rising than anything else, and the game also implements regular platforming controls really well into the combat system. Using the R1 or L1 will perform a quick step as a way to dodge the enemies or move around them if timed correctly. The parry is also very abusable as it's continuous and slows down time when performed. After defeating Ninja, we receive a gear which is used to access Cyberspace. However, to access the second Cyberspace stage, we need to defeat another named enemy, Tower. We get our second gear and travel into Cyberspace. Cyberspace stages are short segments of stages from previous Sonic games with a few originals. Each Cyberspace stage has 4 tasks. Completing the stage, getting an S rank which is based purely on time, completing the stage with a certain amount of rings, and getting 5 red rings in one go. If you complete all 4 tasks, you complete a secret 5th one. This doesn't have to be done in one go though. For every task you complete, you gain a key, and keys are needed to unlock the Chaos Emeralds. Cyberspace is one of Frontier's weakest points. On my first playthrough, something felt off, but I could just never pinpoint what. Since Shadow Generations had come out, I decided to grind base Generations for achievements, and it's because of this I now know why this is. Speed. You don't feel as fast or as free as previous boost games. The boost feels slower and doesn't destroy enemies. Jumping drops all momentum. Sonic turns like a tank whilst jumping. The drift is gone, and homing attacking feels slow because of the delay. I wanted to do a comparison to see if Sonic was in fact slower, and it may not look like it, but I've noticed the stages have been cut down in length a bit and Sonic feels a lot more floaty. Combine that with the worse controls and Sonic is in fact slower, even if he's moving at the same speed. These issues are also very apparent when you're in 2D sections. I won't go on a rant about this, but I genuinely believe 3D Sonic does not work in 2D environments, and after playing Mania I believe this even more. There are a few exceptions, but most of the time it feels like you're taking away a lot of the freedom that comes from 3D space. I don't mind the concept of cyberspace stages, but because they're not particularly fun and visually are just asset rips from previous games, they can really bring down your experience. Not enough to ruin it though. That's what comes next. Exiting cyberspace, a bridge spawns, and following the path we grab our first Chaos Emerald, and finally, we are introduced to the true open world of Sonic Frontiers. But first, some pop-up text. And some Emerald cutscenes. Okay, now we're at the true open world experience of Sonic Frontiers. A cool feature of Frontiers is how, once you've collected enough keys, the emeralds themselves will emit a light guiding you towards them. Mixed with the compass, it's a nice way to prevent the player from always having to check the map. However, we have another objective: find your friends. There's a marker leading us to a nearby red pod. Inspecting it, we see Amy trapped inside, and thanks to the powers of DLC, we're able to unlock the pod instantly. In doing so though, Sonic seems to absorb a strange, shadowy corruption. This feels awfully familiar, but that's not important. What is important is that Amy is glitched out and is apparently trapped between this world and cyberspace. Why Sonic can escape but Amy can't is never truly explained. My guess is it has something to do with where they were trapped, mixed with Sonic's natural ability to harness chaos energy. Also, his name's on the title screen. It's here our objectives are set. Collect the Chaos Emeralds and try helping Amy escape cyberspace by collecting her memory tokens. And for the most part, you're free to go about this how you wish. And that's it. That's the game. Memory tokens are essentially just padding. Scattered all over the island are random floating platforms and rails that pop in and out whenever they feel like it. Each mini section of platforming will give you one memory token. I'm not a big fan of the memory tokens, as after a while you just get bored. Each lasts a few seconds and can be the most automated sections in Sonic history. Some are fine, but most of them are just monotonous. But what about exploration? This is an open world game, so surely there's a lot to explore, right? Well, not really. Everything I've explained up to this point is the gameplay loop. Fight bosses, enter cyberspace, find tokens, talk to Amy. There's nothing more than that. In one of the 3 free updates, they added a jukebox, allowing you to listen to music from this game and previous games. You get a few tracks at the beginning, but you have to find the rest yourselves. I think this is a great addition purely for how it will save your sanity from the 2+ hour experience of collecting memory tokens. You can also increase Sonic's stats though. Attack and defense are increased through the Tree of Might fruit you get from map puzzles that I mentioned before. Your ring count and climbing speed are increased through collecting Coco. More on them later, but they're just cute little creatures scattered throughout the world for now. Another update also added special Coco that are unlocked through more challenging platforming sections. These sections are way better than the memory tokens as they are longer and sometimes need multiple skills to complete. Some are bullshit though. These Coco will increase your boost gauge, however creating an infinity side loop will make your boost infinite for a short period of time. I don't think any of this saves the lack of things to explore in the world though. There's no ruins, no hidden lore. If it wasn't for the memory tokens, the island itself would be completely empty. These random platforming sections also make the world just look ugly. There is a cool looking floating structure, but it doesn't do anything. Like I said in the beginning, this game looks beautiful and the lighting and designs are amazing. The issue is that it feels like a Nintendo Hire This Guy world. It looks amazing, but is there anything to actually do? At their core, most open world games behave this way, but you're also able to build, explore, unlock hidden items, interact with people in the world itself. In Frontiers, it's the bare minimum. Collect an item, give it to the intended person, get reward. My favourite open world games are the ones that allow you to actually do something with your character, with NPCs, with the world, with items, with anything. The open world of Sonic Frontiers is just nothing. If they just put the open world gameplay into more Sonic-like platforming sections, it probably would have been a great game. When you first play Frontiers, you don't realise this until later on, but on a second playthrough, none of this is actually fun. I think the mini-bosses are fun, and Cyberspace isn't terrible, it's just poor compared to older games. However, these only take up a fraction of your time compared to the collectathon that is the open world. After collecting enough memory tokens, you'll be able to interact with Amy's story-related cutscenes. You can find other interactions through the map, but they aren't anything special. I say that, but I didn't really pay much attention. The main cutscenes were boring enough. After you reach a certain milestone, a giant titan will randomly appear in front of Sonic. Sage, the creepy girl from earlier, zaps the titan, and after seeing this and being told to leave, Sonic still asks Sage if she's trapped too. Ignoring everything that Sage just said, Sonic rushes in to face the titan head on, doing absolutely no damage in the process and getting yeeted across the map for his troubles. Realizing he'll need his super form, we continue our journey. Personally, I love the Titan's introduction. He's not just as big as godlike beings from previous games, but is as strong or stronger, swatting Sonic like a bug. We knew the Titans would be a threat, but this proves how big a threat they are, giving us more purpose for our objectives whilst also making us think, oh, that voice said Titans, plural. It's got to be one of the best intros in the series because it happens very early and uses gameplay to set the threat up. If it was just a cutscene, it wouldn't feel as meaningful to the player. On your first playthrough, it also feels like a random event, worrying you even more. Perfect Chaos is terrifying, destroying a city simply by existing. The problem is how the Chaos fights leading up to him are really easy. Seeing him grow by collecting Chaos Emeralds is cool, but the threat and cool factor are taken away since his fights don't get much harder. Him being a tutorial boss also ruins some of the potential to be a true threat. Shadow with 1 Chaos Emerald is more threatening than Chaos with 6. Dark Gaia has 2 amazing introductions and an even more amazing design, grotesque and creepy, almost taken out of an animated horror film. The fight itself being multi-staged with different gameplay styles also makes you work for the ending and allows the supersonic transformation to feel earned. The problem is we only see Dark Gaia's effect on the world and rarely see Dark Gaia, which takes away from the potential to be more impactful to us the player. Outside of Zavik, the Deadly Six aren't threatening at all, which is a shame because they are a constant looming threat, appearing in multiple cutscenes and levels outside of their boss fights. Their problem being their colourful designs and exaggerated stereotype personalities. They aren't threats, they're comic relief. The Titans are threatening in design and action, proving their strength as soon as possible. They're also a looming threat and have some of the best boss fights in Sonic. There are still things to improve upon, but it's a step in the right direction. Sadly, from this point onwards, you'll have no more scares, as Giganto is just chilling on a higher point of the island we can't get to yet. Which means more memory token collecting! Woo! We find out Amy is trying to help different Coco find their lost loved ones. One is looking for their lover, the other their child. To help, we need to do a bunch of random out-of-place minigames. Most of these minigames are either collecting Coco, herding them whilst they drop bombs on us, or side-looping things. I don't think these minigames are that bad, they just feel as if they were added to give us a break from the collectathon. Some of these minigames will nab us a Chaos Emerald though. I think the reason they added Amy into this game is they wanted a situation where her character can be more independent from Sonic. Instead of chasing him around or being saved by him, they wanted to focus on her kind nature, and I'm all for that. The cast were told to have a more serious or low-pitched tone to their voices, and it can work at times, but this direction specifically doesn't fit Sonic. It's also difficult to make a character independent from Sonic when they're trapped between worlds and need Sonic to do everything for them whilst he's already trying to figure out a way to save them. The idea is nice, the execution, not so much. Every so often throughout the game we'll get cutscenes with Eggman trapped inside cyberspace, however he seems to be in a world similar to the one we enter, which makes sense since he entered through the same way we do. We also find out Sage is working for Eggman and is able to travel between worlds. Eggman wants out, but Sage refuses until it's safe. Throughout most of the game we have no idea what that actually means though. A lot of the interactions between Sage and Eggman feel like they were trying to build a connection between the two. I have an issue with that. I don't care about Sage, and Eggman is a piece of shit to all of his lackeys/creations in every previous incarnation of the character. The only person he's ever complimented is his genocidal grandfather, who is very evil, as the Shadow the Hedgehog game isn't real. You're in a coma. Wake up. Wake up, please. Please. Your family misses you. Please, wake up. Trying to make this a father-daughter relationship feels really forced, as it's immediate and isn't written well either. You are able to use memory tokens to interact with Sage to gain some kind of connection with her yourself, but it just feels random and I don't really like Sage at all. But I'll get more into that later. For now, our next task is a needlessly complicated puzzle. Once completed, we open the way to Giganto and scale up the mountain knowing we only have 6 emeralds. Standing against Giganto, we're told the final emerald is atop his head. Kinda lame it's spoiled, but whatever. Scaling Giganto, we collect the 7th emerald, and finally, it's time. time for the best aspect of Sonic Frontiers, the Supersonic Titan fights. For the first time in a long time, Supersonic is not restricted to the final boss. Take everything I said about the combat and times that by whatever the Supersonic multiplier is. Animations are more expressive, sound effects are more aggressive, and Sonic gains a JoJo stand aura whenever he punches or kicks. Flying around as Supersonic also feels really smooth. Outside of Mania, this has been the best feeling Supersonic since 3. Giganto himself is a very simple fight. His attacks are very telegraphed, but I forgive it because this is Supersonic, literally a being that in his base form is faster than sound. However, if you are not able to parry, those attacks do hurt. But if you do parry, you are able to counter and unleash a badass, over-the-top and extremely strong-looking attack where Sonic spin dashes through Giganto's face into the air and summons a bunch of after images to rain down, doing mass damage. You can also get some anime-looking QTEs that show Sonic just playing with Giganto. The QTEs themselves aren't anything super interesting, but the animations more than make up for that. Performing a quick side loop on Giganto will create a tornado to shoot him in the air, keeping him locked so you can just wail on him. He does have the ability to hit back though. But a Sonic game wouldn't be complete if it didn't come with an amazing soundtrack, and the Titan fights are no exception. The soundtrack was composed by Tomoya Otani with some help from many other composers. A lot of the music takes a more ethereal approach than previous games, and it makes sense once you learn more about the ancients. I prefer Sonic songs that are more upbeat and relate to freedom and adventure, but these tracks still sound beautiful. However, the Titan themes are written and performed by Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens, a rock band that dabbles in metalcore. Please forgive my French here, but these songs fucking slap. The songs all follow a similar motif of building suspense for the intro of Supersonic, then go as hard as humanly possible as you proceed to beat down on the Titans in ways only Metal Gear Rising has been able to achieve. Pure, unadulterated hype. These songs take the fights from a 10 to an 11. These fights have made me feel more like an anime character than any Bandai game has been able to do. My only complaint being how long it actually takes to get to these points. Defeating Giganto also gives us a beautiful reference to Dragon Ball, coming full circle from Supersonic's origins and proving that Sonic needs to fully embrace anime at this point. So many concepts have been inspired by anime, so many Flash games on Newgrounds, so many fan animations. After defeating Giganto, we get a strange flashback that is rather vague, as it's not one of our flashbacks. There's no time to think about that though. Amy is still trapped, and the evil voice tells us we have more Titans to destroy. Heading to another island, Sonic is shot down by lasers that appear out of nowhere, and the collectathon starts all over again. Welcome to Frontiers, kiddos. My main issue isn't there being a gameplay loop, it's the fact it's a really boring gameplay loop. You can enjoy Cyberspace, and I implore you to load up an old save and go around and fight the mini-bosses. They are genuinely fun. It's the monotony of the memory tokens that ruins that. You're also not able to actually replay the Titan fights whenever you wish. You have to go through something to do that. I know that a lot of concepts kept getting scrapped in early production, and I hope I don't come off as hating towards the developers. I also appreciate this is a new engine with a new gameplay style, but this is also a AAA game that spent 5 years in development. So I'm holding it to a AAA standard so producers know to let the developers develop their games. I'm not going to talk about the final horizon as I think this video is going to be long enough already, but I do want to cover it at some point in the future, as there's a lot of positive things in that DLC. But for now, we've just crash landed on Aries Island.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't want this to be easy anyway.
So it's rinse and repeat, except this time with Knuckles. He was apparently investigating ruins and randomly transported to cyberspace. I'm not the biggest fan of Frontiers' writing, but Sonic and Knuckles have a way better dynamic here than in previous games. A lot of their dialogue and interactions feel more like a brotherly rivalry rather than an antagonistic one. SA2 tried this as well, but like most games, they rarely, if at all, actually interact with one another. Aries Island is a lot bigger than Kronos, and because of that you'll be here a lot longer and will have to collect a lot more memory tokens. This does ramp up the issues I had before, but at least the interactions between Sonic and Knuckles feel a lot more natural. It does show that there was some actual care put into the writing. But like I said, Aries Island is a lot bigger, meaning we're going to be here a lot longer. A big issue with the islands going forward is the amount of rails within them. They are everywhere and just ruin the view even more. What's worse is that when you complete map challenges, they spawn more rails as a form of fast travel. I like the concept though. I think fast travel gets abused way too much nowadays and it tends to ruin the exploration side of video games. It kind of works similar to Roach from The Witcher 3, however, because there's nothing to explore, it does as much harm as good. Rail grinding in Sonic is an inherently bad thing to me. It restricts your controls without changing the core gameplay style enough to warrant it. Unleashed at least tried to add different challenges or implementations to make it more interesting, but the more Sonic has used rail grinding in recent years, the worse it's got. Lost Worlds went into the right direction but was held back by the Mario Galaxy gimmick that it had. Because cyberspace stages are so short, it's not as bad, but in the open world they're everywhere and offer little to no challenge outside of the boost working weirdly when you swap between them. Frontiers is filled to the brim with things to do, yet feels so empty. There's no culture to the islands, no people to interact with, no ruins to explore, and no hidden lore to find. You simply go from point A to point B over and over and over again. The lore, or at least the implication of lore, is always speculated to you through dialogue or very vague flashbacks that don't have much meaning to you as the player, even at the end of the game. There are some towers scattered around to parkour on, but the most we get in terms of real culture is a destroyed wall buried by sand. If the Coco were NPCs that actually had dialogue relating to the areas or zones, it would have been more interesting to you as a player. However, there still would have been nothing there. They at least make gathering the Chaos Emeralds a bit more interesting by needing to go through a platforming section that is longer and more enjoyable than the memory token stuff, but a lot of the time it's just floating pathways that are very straightforward. These sections are also very on rails, so the most challenge you get is timing your jumps. If you're unlucky though, the Starfall Roulette may appear when doing these sections and block part of your screen. It may not look annoying now, but when you're playing the game it can be very distracting. The Starfall Roulette is a random event that lasts through the night and acts as a quick way to gather stat seeds or Coco. However, if you've played Skyrim, you can cheese some of these sections by just boosting up walls and hoping for the best. Back to the story though, we're introduced to our second Titan, a flying creature that reminds me a lot of Skull Greymon, and I fucking love it. I also like that just from design alone, we know this is going to be a very different fight to Giganto. I think a lot of problem with Sonic boss fights or enemies in recent years is how just from design alone, you can't really gain any information from them. And it's not even done in a cool way, a lot of these characters just look lame. With the Titans, these guys look menacing, cool, and unique, and you can gather what the fight's going to be like from the design alone. It's really well done. But for now, we need to run. Like Giganto, I'm a big fan of this Titan's introduction. Giganto sets the Titans up as a threat, and after defeating him, you might feel a bit cocky. However, Wyvern's appearance proves they aren't going to be as simple, and in fact, can hunt Sonic if they wish to. The chase section itself is a nice idea, but I feel like it's a bit automated. Having a way to try and fight Wyvern as base Sonic would have been more in character and more fun for the player whilst keeping that level of threat still in your mind. You don't even need to be able to damage it, just slow it down or something. After escaping the Titan, Sonic is a bit shook up and out of breath. Two very odd things for the character. Is the Titan that strong, or is there something else at play here? Sage attempts an assassination on Sonic, and instead of moving away, Sonic just stands still and looks helpless.
You're too trusting, Sonic.
Though I agree with you, Knuckles, that's not something you're allowed to say. However, I'd have forgiven you if you gave Sage a good smack here instead of blocking her laser. Also, how did you block the laser? What can you interact with, Knuckles? Also, this attack on Sonic is the only time Sage does this. Other than directing the Titan's anger at him, she never actually does anything to prevent Sonic from doing what he's doing. She even takes time out of her busy schedule to chat with him. Spoilers alert, but from her interactions with Eggman, she obviously knows what will happen if Sonic does defeat the Titans, yet she never tries telling him what's up. Sonic is also nothing but nice to Sage, and yet she chooses to do nothing. How am I supposed to like Sage? The Coco minigames are similar to the previous islands, however Knuckles will complement the Coco's military defences, only for them to be decimated in a flashback. He also seems to think the ruins are similar to the ones on Angel Island, though that would make sense as to why he was teleported into cyberspace. Call me a fake fan, I just don't see it. The Ancients are the original versions of the Coco and look awfully similar to Chaos from Adventure. We can deduce the Echidna are either descendants of the Ancients or base their culture around their ruins. We can only speculate, however, since, like I said before, we never learn anything in this game. I like this connection for Knuckles. I like that we could have had a story that actually expanded the characters and the universe, and I do enjoy a lot of the vagueness. The issue is that it goes absolutely nowhere. There's no lore to find within the world. Every flashback is way too vague, and outside of one particular event, the tale of the Ancients has no effect on anything. Eventually we find ourselves in an underground section. This is actually an area we see in some of the flashbacks, and that's really cool, but I don't actually get what this place is for. Was it a meeting place, a playground, a bunker? I don't know. It's a shame these kinds of areas aren't expanded upon because visually, they're really nice. Reaching the end though, we'll find a strange portal that doesn't require any gears and doesn't have any tasks for us. Oh. No. God, no, please. No. 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 No! I actually enjoyed the big sections in Adventure. Sue me. Lucky for you though, it's just a QuickTime event and not an actual fishing game. Scattered around the world are purple coins. You give these to Big to fish. Fishing mainly gets you points to buy different items in Big's shop. Things like cocoa, keys, seeds, gears, mainly things to help you skip a big chunk of the game. You can also fish up things like fast travel scrolls or gold cards that act as a free coupon, and the shop will also have some Eggman logs that talk about Eggman's time in cyberspace. They're meant to build on Sage and Eggman's relationship, but like I said before, I don't care about either of them. It's a rather pathetic attempt at lore expansion. They're not directly tied to exploration and don't expand on anything important, like the Ancients. It would have been nice if they were maybe artifacts left by Tikal, Echidnas, or maybe the Ancients instead. These also wouldn't have been bad if there were other things outside of it. The connection between Ancients and Echidna doesn't need to be a movie, but something would have been nice. Why is Chaos the way he is? Are the Chow like the Coco? We'll never know. You can find one of these fishing portals on each island. I just brought it up now as I felt like I was bitching too much on Kronos. After fishing for 20 minutes, instead of spending another hour gathering memory tokens, we head to our final puzzle. A really obvious block puzzle that has explained to you, in detail, how to complete. But I think it's time we scale this tower and fight Wyvern. I like that it's not that simple though, and we need to actually fight to get onto Wyvern's head. Why he spawns these platforms for us though, I don't know. Maybe he felt bad for the previous encounter? We collect the 7th emerald and once again, it's time. What I love about the Titan fights is how they all work differently. Giganto was a straight bout of fisticuffs whilst Wyvern is a chase sequence. However, this time, were the ones doing the chasing. I said before, controlling Supersonic feels amazing, and it's no different here. This is what the Time Eater wishes it was. The 2D Supersonic boss fights would have you balancing dodging multiple projectiles, collecting rings, and actually chasing the boss to damage it, all at a relatively fast pace. This fight transforms that concept into 3D really well. Generations just made it slow and boring. You're also able to parry the missiles to instantly catch up to the Wyvern, but to me, dodging the multitude of fast projectiles with metal blasting in the background is just too hype to ignore. The sequence itself isn't anything insane, but every Supersonic boss going forward should use Wyvern as a baseline for what makes a good chase sequence. There could be a problem with how everything on screen, including Sonic, is super bright and flashy. Personally, I don't have an issue, but I can see how many people might be getting sick or not able to fully take in everything that's on their screen. But thankfully this isn't just a normal chase sequence, as you actually get to beat down on Wyvern similar to Giganto. Here you need to parry his attacks, either stunning him or opening up for a counter, where you throw him into a mountain, Metal Gear Rise style. Yes, I love Metal Gear Rising. Side-looping Wyvern will also put him in chains for you to just wail on. Where Sonic learnt this ability, I don't know, but I'm not saying anything. The positive to the open world being so empty is Sonic doesn't need to worry about hurting anyone and can fully disrespect his opponents. As shown in the QTEs where Sonic balls up Wyvern's missiles, kicks it back into his face, and sends it spinning. Wyvern will then dive bomb all the way from space, straight into Sonic at full force, and Sonic is having none of that. He then proceeds to guide Wyvern's missiles straight into its mouth, ending the fight. To me, this fight proves simple as best. Like I said, it's nothing insane or special, it's just done so well, I'm acting like this is the second coming of Christ. And this isn't even my favourite boss fight. After another mysterious message from the past, we head off to the third island, Chaos Island, no relation, where once again we're shot down by invisible cannons. Seriously, you find like 2 in the entire game, where the fuck are these coming from? And once again, the emeralds scatter like Dragon Balls. Sonic's idle animation here is showing a lot of fatigue at this point. I appreciate he's been through a lot, but this just isn't normal. However, with no time to waste, I welcome you to Chaos Island, no relation.
Not bad. Things would have been over faster if I'd been Super Knuckles. You did all right.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. I've got one more Titan bot to go. Hopefully I'll find Tails too. I'm worried about him.
He'll be all right. Now hurry up and save the day already.
I like the freedom that Chaos Island allows for with its traversal. Though there are a lot more rails, being able to swap between them or jump to them at any time in any way is rather enjoyable. You're also able to boost and float off of a lot more parts of the island. I think the rail issue wouldn't have been as bad if it was a theme more specific to this island. Some of the concept art even implies that might have been the case. The only real difference between the islands are what friends you interact with and what type of land you're running through. If all the islands were grassy like Kronos, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Adding different themes could have been a good way to create more unique and interesting ways of traversing them. Something I think was wasted potential was the regular enemies. You'll encounter them all at some point, but a lot of the time you'll find yourself running past them. I think they can be really interesting, as they need more than just a homing attack to defeat. On Kronos there's an enemy that regenerates its shield balls, needing something like the sonic boom to damage it. On Aries there's a sniper enemy that you'll need to use the slowdown after the parry to get close to. You even use it for a laser puzzle on Chaos Island, no relation. Some enemies can even steal a Chaos Emerald from you. I think they're wasted being scattered around the island instead of being more carefully placed or used. Maybe teaming up with each other or some of the boss fights, using them for puzzles or something along those lines. Chaos Island has us rescuing Tails, and I just really hate modern Tails. This started in Unleashed, but it's so annoyingly apparent in Forces and Frontiers. Tails is suddenly a coward who relies solely on Sonic to get through anything until the writers forget that that's a thing. It simply makes no sense to me, as he's been following Sonic since the second game and has been going on his own adventures since the third, even having his own game. Adventure 1 has him grow in a very natural way, becoming brave enough to take Eggman on in a 1v1 multiple times. Adventure 2 furthers that growth by having Tails do so many things by himself and being so confident in his ideas and abilities, he now takes the lead on missions, even giving Sonic orders. Though he still makes mistakes, it's really well done character development, and these mistakes are natural. Even Sonic 06 continues this in some way. Tails' dialogue in Frontiers is simply him saying he wants to get stronger without Sonic, then doing nothing to prove that. It could have been a nice idea, but they even reference the growth he went through in Adventure.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
Acknowledging your terrible writing in your media doesn't make it funny or okay. It's an insult to the fans, to the previous writers, and to the series as a whole. This gripe is mainly with whoever made Tails a coward in Unleashed, but it's also just bad and annoying writing anyway. I'm okay with writers not fully understanding a character, but this is a complete 180 for Tails. The overpowered / genius coward is a cliche that's overdone and boring, and to keep repeating it in every game is just pathetic and lazy. But enough about things I hate, time for things I dislike slightly. Our next Titan appears and it leads to another sequence of us getting chased. The reason I dislike this is because it's already been done as an introduction, and it isn't that fun either. It's just another on-rails chase. This sequence also feels a bit more scripted than before, as my boost input felt like it was getting interrupted because I was going too fast. I think the fact that the Titan's shield is not just chasing us but homing in on us is really cool. Sadly, like most things in this game, it's not implemented as well as it could have been. It doesn't feel like the Titan's doing enough to attack you. Maybe if the Titan was doing something to actively chase you or attack you, it would have been a lot better. Maybe throwing rubble or something like that. Adventuring on, we'll find a Crash Death Egg robot that we need to hack to open the way forward. It's here we get our first Galaga-like minigame. You shoot dark and light projectiles to damage the core or destroy matching projectiles being shot at you. You're also immune to the bullet you're shooting, so avoid the opposite shade. Shooting the projectiles will fill up your special gauge a lot faster than normal damage, so focus on that. Also, you can only move horizontally in these sections. Why am I explaining this in detail? Because I've lost control of my life. Eventually, Tails will find his Coco equivalent, a pilot who needs to repair a cannon and find the Coco's hero so they can win this imaginary battle that we still don't know anything about, other than the fact the ancients get fucking pulverized. Amy wishes to protect or help the Coco. Knuckles wants to learn more about their culture, and Tails wants to study their technology. These things all make sense for the characters, and could have been a lot more interesting if there was just more to it. Maybe having some side quests where you can go off with your friend in search of something. I think the game could have benefited a lot from a quest system as a whole. Maybe something like Borderlands 3 where you have hidden treasures, optional side quests, and characters to actually interact with. Going off and exploring with your friends would have led to a lot more of a connection being built, interest in the ancients, and potentially new ways of combating the Titans. It could have replaced the memory tokens entirely whilst keeping the length the same. It feels like the characters are all wasted with how little is actually done in this game. Running around for hours just to watch a cutscene where the two characters stand still the entire time isn't interesting, or rewarding. The minigames as well don't feel fun or rewarding, as other than a Chaos Emerald, we as Sonic or the player don't receive anything. This nuts and bolts collecting minigame also felt super tight. I kept failing and just wanted to go play Ratchet and Clank instead. This diving section is really fun though. No idea why it's timed, but diving feels really fun in Frontiers. Your controls are limited, but because Sonic responds pretty well and you're constantly dodging different things, it's challenging, so it's fun. Even if you aren't a fan, it doesn't overstay its welcome, flowing well with the main gameplay. A lot of the issues in Frontiers comes from how things are just added without proper implementation. Minigames, enemies, platforming, cyberspace. Because none of these flow or combine with each other, it leads to the game feeling more like a prototype where you test the individual features before adding them together. I think the boss fights are a really good example of combination, as they all follow similar mechanics but either are used or combined in different ways to feel familiar but challenging. Some fights are unique but still use things that have worked in previous games. Our showdown with Night is almost upon us, but first, we need to delve into an active volcano. What horrors will we find inside? Platforming over lava? New molten type enemies? Secrets that should never have been uncovered? It's fucking pinball. It's fucking pinball. After forcing the volcano to erupt and somehow doing no damage to Chaos Island, the lava disperses some fog in the middle of the island, revealing Night. I like this reveal, it adds a creepy factor to Night, but I think it could have been a lot better if Night's shield would randomly appear in the overworld to hunt us down. You could say they don't see Sonic as a threat enough to attack, or they don't want to attack Sonic for spoiler reasons. But Sage can divert that anger towards Sonic, and having them at least do something during your adventure would have added a lot of tension to the game. If Sage was a lot more active in stopping Sonic or being more evil instead of a misunderstood kind soul, I'd have liked her even more, and the things she does would have made more sense. You could still have her slowly realizing that what she's doing is bad. Even if it's cliche, it's more interesting than the bland character she is in the base story. Scaling Night is a similar process to Giganto, but first we need to jump over some spikes with precise timing. We once again receive the 7th Chaos Emerald, and once again, it's time. But this time, it's my favourite fight in the entire game. We start off not being able to damage Night due to his shield, but for some reason he decides to throw it at us. Sonic decides, well, what's yours is mine, and what's mine gets rammed into your face. As if you can actually reach him though. I was fighting for my life here. Parrying Knight's sword leads to the coolest counter in the game and coolest cutscene in all of Sonic. Words cannot describe how amazing this is. I think these fights could have benefited from some Yakuza-like QTEs, but in the moment you never really notice. Fun fact, this was my first time experiencing this cutscene, because if you're too close to Knight when he swings his sword, parrying just makes you invincible, and you can skip the counter altogether. The same thing can be done with Giganto. If Knight repeats the opening sequence with his shield throw, he's actually able to swipe you away with his sword, which I think is awesome. Prolonging a boss fight can be very annoying, but if the fight itself is fun and it's done in an interesting way, it doesn't feel like it's being prolonged. I think this segment could have easily been done poorly, but because of what I just said, mixed with the music, fun gameplay, anime level cutscenes, and the rest of the fight being crafted so beautifully, it just works so well. We also get to use the parry in a unique way where we rebound Knight's shield back into him by utilizing the slowdown effect. I think this could have been implemented a lot more throughout the entire game itself. I mentioned before an example, but these are the only times it actually does something positive. Other examples just prolong a fight in a negative way, because now I have to wait for a while. Quick side-looping has Sonic summon spears from the ground, impaling Knight all over and holding him airborne where he cannot do anything to stop us beating down on him. I fucking love this fight. After beating Knight, he swings his sword directly at Sonic, and in true anime fashion, Sonic catches the sword, but in a twist, Knight isn't having any of that and full force yeets Sonic into a wall. Sonic throws the sword and punches Knight so hard the sword itself flies from his hand. As the music softens and comes to its diminuendo, Sonic side-loops the sword, taking hold of it and slicing Knight in half. If, like me, you grew up on Newgrounds, this meant something to you. I want to take a minute to appreciate how well these fights are crafted from a narrative point of view, as they show Sonic's growth with his super form. No longer is it just a power-up. He's able to utilize techniques that rival Shadow or Silver, whilst showing potential to go beyond that. Sonic fan animations were already amazing, but this has taken it one step further, so let's all take a second to thank Sega. Sonic flies off to the next island, and we see towers extrude out of the ground and open their peaks, revealing an object that lights up. Obviously important, we need to find a way up there. However, Sonic is looking worse than terrible here, struggling to even stand. The Titans have not only been his toughest fight yet, but this cyber corruption that gave him new abilities seems to be draining him. A nice detail here is when Sonic reacts to the voice in the sky, Tails not only looks confused but tries to find what Sonic is talking to, potentially implying this voice is related to the corruption.
Hang tight, partner. We're almost through this.
Be careful.
Careful. Where's the fun in that?
But with that, I introduce you to my favourite island, Rhea Island. The reason this is my favourite is because there's no memory tokens, no cyberspace, and no minigames, just pure platforming. These aren't the best platforming sections in Sonic as a whole, but they are certainly the best in the base game. They're longer and more challenging, utilising all kinds of platforming styles and designs that are mixed really well together, though there can still be some issues. If you look off in the distance, you'll see this island is actually connected to Kronos. Why it's got a separate name, I don't know, because you can actually enter the arena you fought Giganto in. It's been confirmed that Kronos, Rhea, and the final island were all meant to be connected to each other in some way. That's why they share similar aesthetics. Part of me thinks it might have worked, but because so many ideas were scrapped, I don't think this modern version of the game would have worked with this idea. These islands are already too long. If you don't find the fishing stages or the Starfall Roulette, you will spend 2+ hours just collecting memory tokens on each island. Having one massive island would not have made this any better. Like I said before, a lot of ideas were scrapped really early on though. So maybe there was a better concept for the individual aspects of this game and we really missed out on something epic because of producers. We're told by the voice we need to shut these towers down, so that's what we do. Each time we do, we get a longer flashback that adds a lot of insight into the Ancients' past and how they're running from something that wiped out their old planet, bringing the Chaos Emeralds with them to Earth. Or Mobius, whichever. There isn't much to talk about here. I think it's kind of lame to say the Emeralds aren't from Earth, even though the Master Emerald was always here. It's just a random thing to do, really. Even though I don't like it, there isn't really much in terms of story anyway, so I'm just going to move on. We shut down the final tower and learn the Ancients never truly defeated whatever was chasing them. They had to seal it in a secret fourth Titan. On top of that bombshell, the cyber corruption Sonic has been absorbing the entire game finally catches up to him. He's in absolute agony and eventually completely shuts down. Everyone that was trapped in cyberspace is now freed. Our friends, Eggman, Sage, and the end. The monster that hunted the Ancients and the voice that's been guiding us the entire game. Sage is panicked. She's ran so many simulations and every option has a 0% chance of defeating the end. We were finally able to free our friends, but at what cost? Absolutely none, because after some power of friendship bollocks, Sonic is freed from his cyber corruption. Seriously, it was barely 2 whole minutes without Sonic. They even add triumphant music alongside his heroic pose.
Everyone, thank you. I won't let you down.
I get this is a Sonic game, but that moment was too fast to even be called rushed. Sonic 06 did the same thing way better, if you forget about the whole kiss thing. Sage figures out that if Sonic, her, and Eggman all team up, they might have a chance at defeating the end. She never ran this simulation before because Eggman didn't allow her to. Lazy writing. This is also the reason Sage kept Eggman in cyberspace, which means she knew this was going to happen and did nothing to stop it. She doesn't talk to Sonic, she doesn't explain it to Eggman. All she did was make the Titans try attacking Sonic once and then gave up. I love the Titan fights, but the reason they fight Sonic in his super form is because he attacks them first. They're just waiting there the entire time.
Oh good, he's back.
This is our chance. I never simulated a scenario where Sonic helped, since you never authorized it.
Artificial intelligence. Artificial dumbass! There isn't much I can say about the final island, as it's just the same deal as all the others, only even longer. However, they knew by this point you'd hate the collectathon with a burning passion and decided to add 2 whole fishing spots for you, just in case you missed one. I like exploring the world within a game and finding the hidden secrets, and I think Sonic controls really well in the open world. It's smooth, responsive, and adapts the traditional boost style really well. The issue comes from there being nothing to do with these controls. With games like Spider-Man, traversal is everything. With the ability to swing around however you wish, you can take your time or speed to your destination. If there were no buildings to swing off of, then you'd just be walking everywhere. With Mario Odyssey, the worlds are designed to allow you to feel free with the control scheme. You can collect moons in all kinds of ways. There are specific paths you can take, but you can either go a different way that you create yourself, or go about the intended path in a more creative way. When it comes to the world of Frontiers, there's no platforms to jump on, no ramps to boost off of, no walls to run across. They're only used for specific sections and specific ways to collect memory tokens or Chaos Emeralds. These features are standard to Sonic, so they need to be translated into the open world if that's the genre you're making. I want to explore a gigantic world in the style of traditional Sonic stages. The world itself is just flat, and because of that, you'll only be boosting through the whole game. By doing the time trials, you can unlock the spin dash, but that is only achieved at the end of the game, and I honestly don't think many people are replaying the entire game. The friend this time is Sage, and I've already given my opinion on her. I don't think she adds anything to the story, and her purpose here is just to tell Sonic what to do. We at least get to play more of the Galaga minigames though. Woo! After collecting 6 of the emeralds, Eggman finally pulls his weight and has gathered the 7th. Go team. We turn Super one last time and head to the final Titan, Supreme. A Titan with a similar design to Giganto, but with jet boosters and a long barrel sniper rifle. Will this Titan be the ultimate final boss? A combination of the previous fights, the fist fight to Giganto, the chase of Wyvern, and the creative weapon usage of Knight. All the Titan fights so far have been glorious and unique, full of fast-paced action with spectacular cutscenes. And it's just Giganto with wings. Seriously, it doesn't even use the jet boosters to fly, and the sniper is used for the lamest QTE in the entire game. The quick Psy-loop is just the same as Giganto's. This has got to be the most disappointing final boss I've ever seen. From the design alone, there's so many things you could have done with it. The entire game, I thought Sonic was going to need a form beyond Super to fight the final boss. Apparently Hypersonic was a scrapped idea, but even having that might have gotten fans so hyped that the final boss itself didn't need to be special.
Is that it?
My thoughts exactly. But it's not over yet.
It's not over yet!
This is only phase 1 of the epic showdown we're about to face. With the Titan defeated, the essence of the end is truly released. To win this fight, Sage needs to pilot Supreme and join forces with Supersonic to destroy a planetary level threat. Truly, we've reached the peak of Sonic. Flying into space like days of old, calling out to everyone the end has affected for aid, Boo Saga style. It's time for the Clash of Legends. It's time for fucking Galaga? The true final boss of Sonic Frontiers is a minigame. My vocabulary is not vast enough to describe how disappointed I am. The fight itself is a cutscene, as you can't actually defeat the end until it's done spouting nonsense at you. There's seriously nothing more to add. This is the final boss. We defeat the end. Sage yeets us right through it, but in one final act of desperation, the end is about to self-destruct. Sage sacrifices herself to hold in the blast. Our friends are set free, Sonic flies back to Earth, we hug it out, and comets rain in the background. Eggman stands alone in a shot so beautiful I almost wanted to care about him. The credits play, everyone talks about what they want to do with their lives, and Sonic Frontiers comes to an end. Also, Eggman reboots Sage, ruining the whole sacrifice thing she just did. The end is a terrible final villain, and not just from a gameplay perspective. The idea of the voice guiding us being evil is cool, but the idea of the end itself is terrible. Making all the flashbacks or references extremely vague could have worked, but there's no actual payoff to all that build-up. We never see the end, not even a silhouette, simply the destruction it created. These cutscenes reminded me of when I was a kid and got a Power Rangers Megazord toy, but never got a villain toy, so I had to use my imagination to create a villain for it to fight. Setting up a villain who's never seen is easy to mess up, but a good example of this done well is Madara from Naruto. Throughout the entire series, we get little nods to him and his abilities. We never see him in action, but we see incredible feats accomplished by those who are far weaker than him. When he is finally revealed, he is able to far surpass those expectations. In a weaker state, he mows through any challenge presented to him. It works by creating suspense and reminding us about him every so often. He isn't constantly mentioned as there are other threats as well, so it doesn't set our expectations too high either. Another way they could have gone about introducing the end is like Unicron from the first Transformers movie. Early on, Unicron is set up as a threat, a planet-sized transformer who eats other planets, and no attempt to stop him succeeds, and those who flee meet the same fate. During the film, the heroes also have to deal with the current threat of the Decepticons and the new villain Galvatron, a stronger and more ruthless Megatron. All while the viewer still feels that looming threat of Unicron having the potential to appear at any point in the film. I don't like bashing things, even if I don't like them. It just serves no purpose. I don't hate Frontiers, there's just so much wasted potential. I just wanted to give my voice to explain what can be done to improve the game. Sega will never see this video, but maybe a current or future indie developer will and take what I have to say into account for their next game. It's one thing to say there's potential, but what could a game do to improve or utilize that potential? Well, I have some ideas. There are some independent projects we could look at to answer that question, but first there's a game I've made a few joke references to during this video. A game that obviously inspired Frontiers and also changed the world of gaming when it first released. And that game is... Shadow of the Colossus released for the PlayStation 2 in 2005 and remade in 2018 for the latest Sony consoles. If you haven't heard of this game, you are either lying or are simply uncultured. It changed the way we viewed the open world genre and gaming in general. Most open world games at the time were stereotypical action RPGs that followed grand heroic stories filled with choices of good and evil. The worlds themselves were alive, filled with magic and mystical creatures. Shadow of the Colossus took those aspects and threw them right out the window, choosing a darker story focusing more on engaging gameplay through parkour and combat. Still keeping the grandness of the world and your journey through it, but purposefully leaving it empty. Frontiers takes a lot of inspiration from this. Vast empty worlds, giants to slay, and evil essence being absorbed into the hero at each major milestone. Sadly, Frontiers misses the mark as Sonic isn't meant to be empty. Even before Sonic Adventure, the worlds of the games were so full of life. All like the animated shows, they were dismal, but hope shone through via the inhabitants of the world. The reason Shadow of the Colossus works is it's standalone and uses that emptiness to tell its own story. Frontiers isn't and doesn't. Who built these grand structures? Why is there little to no life? How long has this part of the world been like this? These are all questions you ask yourself whilst exploring the world or going through the story, but out of intrigue, not confusion. The only real form of life here are the Colossus, and your goal is to kill them to save your loved one. You don't have any time to find the answers. With Sonic games, these aren't questions you should be asking from the beginning. It would have been more interesting if slowly your friends or the inhabitants of the world began disappearing. Sonic isn't known for prolific, groundbreaking stories, but it's always at its best when it's full of soul. Also, in an open world setting, the journey itself needs to make up for the lack of interaction. Something I love about Shadow of the Colossus is how you are the villain. It's sneakily and not so sneakily implied throughout the entire game. The Colossus themselves are either sleeping or just going about their lives, not attacking you until they see you as a threat. When climbing them, the music is triumphant and heroic, but until you reach that point or whenever you're thrown off, it's more of a sad and somber melody. Frontiers adapts these aspects pretty well, and I think if they allowed more time for story elements, it could have done something even better. One aspect it does fall short on though is the boss fights outside of the Titans. Like I said before, these fights are very fun and well put together. Other than Shark. The Colossus fights are all very different. Some are humanoid, some fly, some swim, and some need more than just your weapon to actually damage. They all have things in common with each other, but are varied in how those similarities work or mix together. Challenge within familiarity. The fights in Frontiers are similar. Each island has 3 to 5 different bosses. Some are reused or upgraded versions of the previous fights though. With the Colossus, you need to utilize your equipment and the environment in many different ways for a chance to get on top of them. Climbing and damaging them require completely different skills. With the fights in Sonic, it's normally one set gameplay style, which then leads to spamming different attacks on its weak point in hopes that you one-cycle it. Fortress, for instance, is the size of Wyvern, yet it's just squid but with rails. Sumo and Spider being the exceptions that, to me, work really well. The tower and pillar fights could have been a lot better if the area you fight them in was more cramped, whilst ninja fights are great as they are pure combat. If you were to enhance or combine some of these fights, like Strider, Spider, Squid and Caterpillar into a multi-tier fight that uses different platforming styles and some cinematic QTEs, you could have easily had some Titan level fights with base form Sonic. And I think that would have been really neat. You could keep some of the fights how they are, but have them forced upon you in unique sections of the map similar to Shadow of the Colossus. They took open world a bit too seriously when it came to this, and it ruins a lot of the great aspects of Frontiers. I don't want to talk about concept art too much, as it genuinely makes me cry thinking about what we could have had. But it genuinely looks like it could have adapted the Shadow of the Colossus style perfectly into Sonic. The world looks bigger, more detailed and expansive, having all kinds of structures closer together forming mini civilizations, buildings that resemble factories or places of worship, more ruins to explore. The different biomes include different construction styles of similar buildings, implying different subcultures of the ancients or even other races that lived beside them, potentially even ancient Echidna. Cyberspace looks more like one big continuous highway taking inspiration from previous level designs instead of cutting and pasting a 30-second segment. I mentioned before I think traversing through the open world isn't fun. The world itself just didn't allow for the boost formula to be used effectively. A reason for that could be because the boost formula is getting old. It's not only fundamentally the same as it was in Unleashed, but it's gotten worse with each game. It'd be easy to say copy Unleashed, but I've seen a few videos of the Unleashed style in Frontiers or the Frontiers style in Unleashed, and both look good but aren't as good as what Sonic is capable of. To explain what I mean, I want to take a look at a few fan games that have either fixed, improved, or adapted older Sonic games. Project 06, Project Reignition, and Rush 3D. We're all very aware of the mess that is Sonic 06. The bugs, the story, the Agent Shadow line read.
2-3 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow.
Project 06 sets out to change all of that, fixing the bugs, changing lighting and model design, and improving the basic controls whilst fixing issues present in the original. For instance, rail swapping. Chaos X is slowly but surely creating a real Sonic game. They're even adding custom animations in between levels based off of unused dialogue present in the game's code. Characters are fast now, with an improved moveset to help with traversal and combat. Gone are the tanky controls. Sonic & Co feel smoother and their abilities are able to flow a lot better. Silver can not only use his psychokinesis to match Sonic's speed, but can attack in more and various ways. The level design has only been slightly tweaked, if you don't count fixing the many glitches. Yet so many people have nothing but great things to say about Project 06. Finally, all of you haters can say you like Sonic 06 without being judged. Seriously, for a game everyone vehemently hates, there seems to be a lot of playthroughs on YouTube. The Mach speed and vehicle sections have also been tweaked, feeling faster, less tanky, and because of how smooth they feel, the random crap constantly getting in your way is actually fun to dodge instead of annoying to get hit by. I'm not great at video games, so I tend to mess up a lot, especially in Sonic. To me, the fun comes from replaying levels and getting better so I can go faster, but when I mess it up, it doesn't feel bad or disheartening when the controls are fun. Especially when, with good controls and skill, I can actually save myself. The issue with the boost formula is that Sega thinks the levels need to be linear and straight for it to work. Project 06 shows you're allowed to slow down and include more varied platforming if the gameplay is enjoyable. Sonic is about going fast, but if I'm just holding forward and boost whilst occasionally jumping, am I even playing a game? Project Reignition proves that you can have more interesting platforming and high-speed gameplay whilst being a bit more linear though. Sonic in the Secret Rings was held back by its want to only use motion controls, leading to a very linear level design and frustrating gameplay. Project Reignition has mapped the controls to actual controllers and has not only saved Secret Rings but has made it one of my favourites. Neither projects are finished by the way, but make sure to check them out yourselves, links will be in the description. Reignition keeps the level design exactly the same, and for the most part is incredible. Because you have more control over Sonic, the levels and enemies are able to thrive and truly show off how unique they are. Again, it was held back by motion controls, so it's not perfect, but there's a good balance between needing quick reactions and the precise platforming. Speeding through these levels with the music blasting genuinely felt incredible. But for something that actually improves on the boost formula, let's look at Rush 3D. Keeping the visuals, playstyle, and vibe of Rush, but adapting it to the Unleashed gameplay. At the time of recording, this game currently has one level, but it perfectly shows off what can be accomplished. The controls are fast and smooth, blending well with each other. And the level design mixes all kinds of platforming elements. Boosting, wall running, fast-paced platforming, and cinematic sections. You need to use tricks to fill the boost gauge, but you're also able to use the trick system to reach different platforms or bypass certain sections. You also have a spin dash if needed, and all these actually damage enemies. Like the other games, moving Sonic feels a lot more free without feeling floaty. A huge issue I have with modern Sonic in general is how tanky he feels in the air whilst not having any weight. It's a weird combination that feels like they're compensating the issue instead of fixing it. The freedom in movement, varied abilities, and active level design make these games feel fantastic. The project's even changing people's whole perspectives on once terrible games. The boost formula needs to adapt and evolve. I haven't played Shadow Generations yet, but from what I know, it feels like it's starting to go in the right direction. However, I believe it can go even further beyond. And the proof of that is in Spark the Electric Jester, specifically the third game as that's the only one I've played. On the surface level, Spark looks like a clone of Sonic, but in the case of Spark 3, that couldn't be any further from the truth. There are a lot of similarities in design and gameplay, but as I learned in theatre, it's okay to take inspiration from things that work, as long as you make them your own. Sega are normally really chill with fan projects. Competition is a great way to improve any format, and if Spark was no more than a clone, there wouldn't be so many sales. Spark is a fast-paced platformer, so of course it's going to feel like Sonic and have similar abilities. The Jester Dash is simply a homing attack, the Down Dash is the Drop Dash, and Spark can wall climb. However, with Spark, you can grip onto any wall, allowing for a lot more freedom in traversal. Freedom is the biggest difference between Spark and Sonic though. Spark's abilities as a whole allow for a lot more creativity in how you go about levels. These abilities all work in tandem to keep the momentum going. Momentum is a huge part of platforming, and I think people misunderstand what momentum is. From YouTube videos, it seems they think it's all about going fast, but it's also about movement. I can boost all day long, but if I have to slow down every time I want to do precise platforming, that isn't keeping momentum. Spark moves around a lot more freely on land, in the air, and on walls. By holding down the R2 or right trigger on a wall, Spark can wall run, still being able to jump off to gain height or to keep moving forward. Sonic games rely too much on cinematics in gameplay to recreate these things. Freedom in movement feels better because you are actively doing something skillful. Combining all these abilities together with creative and varied level design, Spark sets itself up to be the next Sonic. There isn't a traditional boost in the game. Instead, you have two forms of the dash. The regular dash, a quick burst of speed to keep momentum when going uphill, and the charge dash gives a big burst of speed and can be used on the ground or to be held in the air. When used in the air, Spark will also hover in place, allowing for it to be used to reach new heights or save yourself if you mess up. Going back to what I said with the fan projects, if I can save myself through skill, then I don't feel like I messed up. Spark isn't without fault though. For some reason they added full damage, rail grinding is boring in the later stages, and the combat in Spark is lackluster. However, I do want to look at the series as a whole one day, so I won't say any more. I just wanted to use Spark as an example for what Sonic can be. I don't think Sonic needs to drastically change for it to become amazing again. It just needs to improve upon the fundamentals whilst refining what is already working. This isn't just about Frontiers either. I wanted to use examples specifically from Sonic as this is stuff Sega have already done or are capable of doing. There's a theory that they simply don't care about Sonic anymore and put new developers on a Sonic game as a way to test them. And in recent years it feels as if that may be true. But Sonic is a timeless character and will always be around. Not only are the cartoons, movies and games still very popular and successful, but fan games, animations and comics are thriving and have been around for as long as Sonic. Another reason I included Spark was to prove that this style of game is in high demand, and if you want to make this kind of game, do it. You'll have a lot of support from fans and myself. Also, I will voice in the game for free. Please, I really want to voice act in something. Make sure to check out my voice acting channel as well. I promise I'll make good content soon. But also make sure to check out the fan games and Spark if you haven't already. And if you have any other indie games or fan projects you'd like me to talk about in the future, make sure to leave a comment below. And also, thanks for watching.
Oh man, that's just begging to be climbed. Imagine the view.
Your mom when she shoots my dick.